Longevity Lifestyle Designers. This is Gavin here with secretsoflongevity.com. Following with the theme of our last video on the channel, this video is about developing 8 really simple habits that you can incorporate into your life for greater health. Ideally, these would increase your lifespan. Obviously, I can't make that statement if we're talking from a scientific standpoint just because they're not studied for those purposes, but we can just assume that anything that's great for your health is going to help extend your life. So I made this list because these are very simple and easy things to do. You don't need to purchase anything. You don't need to go to any great length. Just start doing them today. You can do one at a time to develop the habit, or if you feel confident enough, just try them all at once if you really feel like it. So the first one is more of a habit when you're out and about in the world. We often hear about the idea that we want to get exposed to bacteria and things to get our immune system stronger. A lot of people are familiar with the ideas that there was a point when there was a lot of fear against bacteria and viruses and all that. So people started to have ultra clean homes, and their kids would get sick later on in life because they hadn't had the exposure to stuff to develop the strong immune systems that are needed to fight off these things. Now, that's important. What I would say is that let your kids play outside in the dirt, get in contact with the soil and nature. That's where you're going to get beneficial bacteria to build up a strong immune system. However, if we're talking about areas where there's a lot of people coming into contact with surfaces that you're then coming in contact with, this is not exposing you to stuff that your body doesn't already have an immune system built up to fight off against. There's definitely going to be bacteria perhaps that you'll come into contact and develop immunity to, but what we're going to actually address here is avoiding the exposure to excess parasites that your body's going to pick up through hand to face, mouth, any kind of contact with the body where it then gets in, and then it's just a burden for your body to deal with. We develop a strong immune system to fight off parasites and things like that, but these are very large organisms compared to bacteria, so they take a lot more work for our immune system to deal with. And yeah, having parasites here or there, the difference of one parasite is not a massive one, of course, but it's the whole cumulative effect of many exposures over a lifetime that we could theorize might have a negative impact on our health. So one thing that always stuck in my mind when I have seen Dr. Brian Clement from Hippocrates Institute speak on many occasions is that he would often talk about how in the blood work they do at Hippocrates Health Institute, and also any live blood cell analysis person could probably corroborate this, is they would see parasites of certain types in the blood almost always from people who live in cities. So these are people who are in contact with railings, bathrooms, all these public facilities that are in contact with many hundreds, if not thousands of people a day. So the best thing to do is avoid contacting them when you're in a city, if you live in a city, and also maybe even go as far as to carry around an all-natural hand sanitizer. That's getting into something that costs money. Wouldn't recommend, definitely not the ones that are those synthetic chemical-based ones with tons of alcohol in it. There's a lot of essential oil-based ones you can find nowadays in like health food stores. But essentially, I've gotten into the habit of opening doors from the bottom of handles, any part of the door that people would touch less of. So most people just touch the top part of a handle. If you think of the different types of handles that are on many doors, sometimes you can push a door open, obviously, and I usually try and use that, push it open with my foot if it's not going to damage the door. If there's no one around, I'll open a door even towards me with my foot if there's a place for my toe to get in on the handle with. The other thing is light switches. Sometimes in public washrooms, the lights are off when you go in, so I use my elbow to turn it on, almost always, or my wrist. So just wherever possible, just avoid contact with your hands, and then if you do happen to touch something in public, just wash your hands afterwards. But of course, then there's the hand knobs that you have to touch, but that's why it would be beneficial to carry hand sanitizer around. And of course, it goes without saying that, yes, use a handle on something like a railing if you do not have as good of stability with your legs. So the second tip or habit that you can get into is convert all your drinking water that you consume over to Springwater. Findaspring.com, link is below in the drop down menu. It's very easy to use this site. Please start doing that. I've talked about benefits of Springwater on many occasions. It's by far the best water in terms of lowest amount of pollutants, highest amount of what we could call bioelectric life force. And it is something that can be measured. It is a real thing that if you have something from the earth which has a measurable electronic field, there's going to be a living quality to that water, just like there's an electric field around plants. And after you've harvested that water, it will dissipate, but for the time, maybe up to a week or so that you have that water, that's going to have a quality about it that you don't get from tap water, that you don't get from filtered water, that you don't get from all these other processes that machines and people do to water to try and make it comparable to real spring water. So tip number 3 is to walk barefoot on the ground, be in contact with the earth at least once a day, if possible. That's skin contact, or if you have the means financially, purchase the grounding pads that you've probably heard of. It's earthing technology that gets you in contact with the electric field of the earth, which is very great for sloughing off excess static electromagnetic fields that we accumulate from Wi-Fi, electronics, even artificial lighting is going to have some degree of creating what's known as e-smog. And this stuff really confuses our body if we're not in contact with the earth. The earth acts as a bubble, an insulating bubble against the effects of these types of magnetic fields. So our body needs to recalibrate with the earth with the same resonant frequency so that we can maintain low inflammation, good immune function, and overall health. There's a whole long list of stuff that you can learn about in the book Earthing, which talks about grounding technology and how it works and the health benefits that have been tested and proven by science to be a major factor that a lot of people aren't aware of about their health. Now, tip number 4 is to try out ambidexterity. So start working the side of your body that you're not used to using for various tasks such as brushing your teeth. If it's not something formal, eating with knives and forks in the other hand, opposite hands. Just anything you can think of, try it with the other hand. Using a mouse with another hand if you're on a computer. That's going to start, creating a more balanced brain function because you're stimulating both hemispheres of the brain more often. I'm going to stick a link here to a video I've done in the past which talks about the benefits of ambidexterity training, and it just goes into more depth. Item number 5 we're going to talk about is working in some cold showers into your daily hygiene. So this can be done at the end of a shower. This could be just a foot bath that's cold. That's a technique that some people do. Or it could be alternating hot and cold during the shower. I've recently gotten into this more and more once again. It's something that you have to develop and really stick to and keep your mind to it because there's a lot of resistance to it because it's uncomfortable. You can definitely get used to it to some degree, but your body's always going to be saying, oh, let's just have the hot water on. And it's a daily willpower test that if you can do that, it actually increases your willpower for the rest of the day. So it's a wonderful practice in many different ways, but also just on the effect it has on your body. It helps close those pores back up after a hot shower. It gets blood circulating to and from the skin. If you do the hot-cold alternating, it really pumps it back and forth. And that in and of itself is very wonderful for the skin, great for the lymph, and has long-term beneficial health effects. So tip number 6 is to maximize your sleeping area or how you sleep in terms of totally blacking out all light in the room, getting blackout curtains if you need to. That's a financial investment, but sometimes that can be done for free. And also getting electronics as far away from your bed as possible, if not remove them completely from your room, especially cell phones. Also make sure that there's no lights on in the room, whether it's a night light, whether it's the lights on electronics. Those are pretty significant, like flashing alarm clock lights or computer lights, even on a laptop. Really tiny lights will light up a whole room. This affects the ability for your brain to produce melatonin while you're in deep sleep. So we want to have as dark a room as possible so our body can go into sleep as deeply as possible. Tip number 7 is to start to learn about and implement some wild edibles into your diet. These can be learned about on my channel. If you go to the main page, I have a section on wild foods and foraging. I've got a growing list of items I've shown people how to do. I'm by no means a wild foods expert, so there's a lot of great resources out there, from books to YouTube channels. So start searching for wild edibles and you'll find the information. And just start with the basics: dandelion, berries, just anything that's edible that isn't too much of a strong herb that can be consumed on a semi-regular basis that you can find in your area. These are often much more dense in nutrition than even organic vegetables. They're free, obviously, and they can also have these medicinal compounds which are largely absent in hybridized and cultivars. Even very organic, healthy vegetables will often have less of these beneficial compounds in them that their wild progenitors would have, which we need in our diet to some degree. And finally, tip number 8 is going to be to bring in more awareness to your ergonomics in day-to-day living. This can be your workstation, just how you sleep. I often sleep without a pillow because that actually allows for a straighter spine. That's more complicated to getting into how to sleep without a pillow, but even just moving day to day, looking at what's the best alignment for your back in terms of having the least amount of strain when you're sitting, when you're standing, walking. I see it all the time. One of the biggest things with people walking is if you're slightly pigeon-toed or your feet are slightly out, every time you're stepping, it's putting strain on the inside or the outside of the knee. And the knee's only supposed to work in one plane of direction. So I forget the name of the joint, but it's like a finger joint. Your finger isn't supposed to move slightly from side to side. So if you can think, if you're trying to bend your finger this way, but your finger's rotated slightly this way and you're trying to bend it, it's putting strain on the outside part, or if it's this way and you're trying to bend it this way, it's putting strain on this side. It's my finger, it's hard to see and understand, but if you think of it as your leg and your knee, it's putting strain on when you're walking without your knees pointing directly forward. Same thing with other parts of the body. Learn about, just online, reading and doing your own research, proper movement of the body so that you understand how it's supposed to move in a way that has the least impact on the joints, because you might not really feel anything if you're younger, but as time gets on, especially with the spine, that bad movement or those bad postures you've held in for long periods of time are going to degenerate faster than the other parts of your body, and you'll start to feel it. That's where the problems will occur. That's where you'll get arthritis many years down the road perhaps, and we can avoid that. So let me know what you think of this list in the comments below. Like, favorite, and share this video if you feel so inclined. With that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.